the organizers of this conference. I think they've done us well. Can we give them a round of applause? I've been in meetings, but I've not seen a meeting that has, collected as many of these people. I want to thank you, the organizers, Hafsa, Butavika Hospital, and everyone who has put in their money into this. I want to appreciate you and thank you very much. I'd like to appreciate the teachers. I understand that letters were written to the head teachers, to the schools actually. I understand letters were sent to the schools, and I want to appreciate the ones that have responded positively. So give them a round of applause. Let's thank our schools for agreeing, for allowing us to come. Yes, and then lastly, I want to thank you for accepting to be part of this forum, but I'm also requesting you to be my ambassadors. Please commit to be a mental health ambassador wherever you go. Please commit and say, I will always protect my mental health and the mental health of others, because it is so important. I know when government comes on, you want to hear the data. Many times you say, wow, how are we faring? What is the data? I'm sure these journalists are going to ask me a lot around it. I want to tell you that we have not done any prevalence studies for mental illnesses in this country. It's unfortunate, but it's a fact. We've done small studies, checking a bit, how is it in schools? How is it in schools? And even when we get in schools, it is just a few schools. How is it in the communities? When we get into the communities, just a few communities. But even then, that information helps us to appreciate the problem in those communities. And sometimes it is possible to generalize those findings to the country at large. So the data that I have is from a recent study that was done by colleagues, again, from Butavika Hospital, from the School of Public Health and the Ministry of Health. We went out into the communities to find out how mental health is within some communities. It was a big study, but for the interest of time, I'm going to tell you what we found in schools. So for the schools, we found that 31 or 32% of learners had an emotional problem, emotional disturbance. When we talk about emotional disturbance, the easiest I can bring close is someone will cry easily. Someone will snap over a small thing. Someone is even disobedient, not because they don't like, but maybe they've not heard. They are not in the moment. They are somewhere, but they are here, but somewhere else. 32%. Teachers up there, you're hearing. Your children have a bit of emotional disturbances. This is a mental health problem that has to be dealt with. You need to understand this person in order to have anything positive out of them. 8.4% of the students had some conduct disorder. 3.8% of the students were hyperactive. When someone is hyperactive, my colleagues will talk about it, I think. You're doing many things, you're thinking about this, you're doing the other, now, And remember, it was not even primary. We went to secondary schools. Okay, they were both primary and secondary. But having someone who is fidgety, they are not paying attention. They cannot learn. They will miss certain things. And that's a mental health problem which needs to be solved. 21% had peer relationships. They had problems with their peers. They were not relating very well with their peers. That's a big number, which requires a lot of attention. The beauty about some of these things is that they are very good, easy interventions. that can solve some of these problems. In another study, we did it sometime last year, 2 years ago, we found that 11.7% of the students were using tobacco, smoking cigarettes, chewing kuba, doing vapes, doing shisha, they were using tobacco. And the problem with this age group was that the difference between the males and females was very small. And the most important thing is they were smoking more than their adult counterparts. The adults have gone down. It initially was 7.8. It is now 6.7. That is tobacco. Meaning we have a problem, and this is what I was talking about. The industry is using our young people, luring them into taking drugs so that they can be their future customers. Alcohol is even worse. This one we did not do very specific for young people. It is a general problem. 65% of Ugandans take alcohol. The beauty is occasional. The ones who are daily users is 29%. Daily. And out of those, 9.8% are at the harmful use, are already having problems. But colleagues, think about 9.8 is about 10%. You think about 10% of a population of 45 million. How many people are those? Those who know mathematics. 10% of 45 million is what? Yeah. Okay, it's a sizable number. 450,000? Or is it 4.5 million? Can you imagine Bawadanga? More than 1 million wadangas in this country. When I say wadanga, do you understand? You don't understand. Those that are abusing drugs, those that require to go to Butabika. Not everyone who is using alcohol needs to go to Butabika, but those ones that need to go to Butabika. In my community, we call them wadanga. They drink and they are gone. Colleagues, that's not a small number. Okay. What are we doing about it? Well, before I go there, we asked a question that how do these problems affect you or affect those around you? The young people told us that they are gravely affecting their day-to-day lives. Mainly at home, but also in the classroom learning. I leave that to the teachers. You have 1 hour per week to do something for the mental health of yourselves, the teachers, but mainly these young people. They are having issues. The biggest problem around the mental issues is that some of them are hidden. You will not know until when you interrogate. Abo bemulaba ku streets, those ones are severely ill. But the majority of the people are suffering silently with their mental health problems. And what do? They resort to drugs as one of the coping mechanisms. In order for them to be able to sleep, in order for them to come out and be able to talk in public and talk to other colleagues of theirs, they need to take on something. That is where the problem comes in. For you young people, you still have ways of doing it in another way. But unfortunately, also these drugs are available. When they are available, you tend to use them very easily, even where you would have avoided. My biggest trouble is availability of some of these substances. alcohol is too much available. It's everywhere. Every shop, every corner, every street, everywhere they are selling alcohol. They're exposing it to people who already have issues. That's a problem. We need to understand the social determinants of these mental disorders and why people use substances. I've given you one of them, and that's it. It's a coping mechanism, and it's available. They've told you about the feel-good effect. Yes, someone, when you take these things, you feel good, those drugs. You feel good and somehow you manage. But the problem is there's a very thin line between continuing to manage and actually falling onto the side of addiction. And when you fall onto the side of addiction, you're gone, you're lost. But what happens when you start early? Your chances of becoming an addict are so high. Remember, your brains are still growing, The synapses have not fully formed. When I say synapses, where are the scientists? Any scientists in here? I know many leaders are artists. They say, I'm a science leadership. Is that right? But okay, they're what we call those synapses. They're not yet complete for young people. So, when you start taking alcohol, it goes into your brain and affects the way your brain is wired. When you take substances, those hard drugs, cannabis, and so on, they are going to tell you, my other colleagues here. They wire your brain so that your brain thinks that as if you don't take it, then you cannot manage. And that's what happens for addictions. So when you start it early, that is what will happen to you. In your wiring, there will be alcohol. There will be a word called alcohol. There will be a substance, alcohol, CHO something. As the formula goes. When you start early, I'm telling you, you will not complete your studies. And even if you completed, by some good luck, the Lord is good, it can happen. You finish. But what will happen to you? You will not be a serious person. You will be these mediocre people who come today, then tomorrow, then they'll give excuses for not being around. That kind of thing. We call it presentism. Someone is in office or wherever, and they are not doing anything. There's no output. And then eventually it gets into absenteeism. That is if you manage to get a job. So many times when you use substances, you will lose your jobs because you will not perform. You will not be a performer. The other thing, even if you don't lose your job and you remain there, you will be using most of your money for treating the side effects or for treating the diseases that come following these substances. And these diseases are what? Hypertension. These are NCDs, the non-communicable diseases. Hypertension, diabetes, cancers. We are seeing many people now developing cancers earlier in their lives. But there's a relationship with substance use. For most of them, 85% of the cancers that we have are related with substances of abuse. And there's some, I want you to differentiate. We are not talking about drugs as in medicine, Panadol and aspirin. No. Those ones are called medicines. The ones that we give to you in facilities, in the health facilities, are called medicines. They are not called drugs. Do not confuse yourselves. Someone was asking, now you see these drugs? What? No, those ones are not drugs. The ones that we give in the facilities are called medicines. Let it be known. Those are called medicines. The other ones, those marijuanas, tobacco, or whatever, meth, there are so many. As Dr. Baswanga put them out. Those ones are the drugs. So when we talk about aspirin and Panadol and chloroquine and whatever, those are not drugs. The other ones are the drugs. Those are medicines. Get it clear. So you will be buying medicines to treat those illnesses that follow the substances. So what can we do? Or what have we done as government? And this is my last. There are three categories of things we do. We regulate, we educate, and we enforce. It's like a triangle. And once you do that, you're sure you'll control substances. If you lose out on any of those, you will not be able to do anything. And at the different vertices, there are different stakeholders. But I think students are at each and every stakeholder of those three vertices. You think about it as a triangle. So regulation, what have we done? We have laws in place. Yes. We have laws in place, and we have them at both local and international. We have obligations as international, as a country, to fulfill international obligations. So we have what we call the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. Are we together, colleagues? Are you all following my discussion? Yes, okay. They're what we call the SDGs, or the Sustainable Development Goals. And the one that affects us most is 3, and that's the one for health. If you didn't know, they're going to ask you that question in your exams, those of you who are in S6. And there's a very specific target on substance use. That is target 3.5. And it says, strengthen the prevention and treatment of substance abuse and harmful use of alcohol. So we have a very clear, it is there. We are supposed to fulfill that obligation as a country at the international level. But how are we faring? When it comes to the prevention of substance use, I think we are not doing very well. But when it comes to the treatment, we are trying to do something. And that is why the panel is here. Butabika is here. The regional referrals are there. There are quite a lot of civil society organizations that are doing a lot of work in the treatment aspect. But when it comes to the prevention, that is where you come in. When we are preventing, one of the first things we do is to make people aware. We want to improve mental health literacy in schools. We want to make you aware about what the causes of some of these substances are. So the education, that goes in there. And my colleague here in education is going to tell you. And we're going to try to ensure that we include this in the curriculum. Then the last one is enforcement. And there's something I want to propose in this August house. Where's Anne? Okay. And others, those of you who are here, I want to suggest that we test for drugs in schools, just like we test for pregnancy. It is possible. It has been done elsewhere. And the kits are available. It is something, the teachers up there, I'm requesting you to support this so that we put drugs out of our schools. If we find someone who is using drugs, we can tell them to go home, or we can tell them, we can support them somehow. Because if we keep quiet about some of these vices, they just get worse. So I'm begging all of you who are here, if you see your colleague taking drugs, kindly report them. That's the first step in controlling substances. My 15 minutes and 1 other second that was given to me is done. I want to end here for now, but I want to call on you to be our ambassadors. I want every school that has attended this conference to go back and have a mental health club. Have a mental health club, or you call it drug, whatever you want to call it, you have better names. Let's do something. Let us rise up and improve our mental health and the mental health of others. That is for our development and purpose in life. I thank you for God and my country.